Yeah, before 9 o'clock.
Yes. Well done.
And I'm almost signed up and oh, I am done redirecting. There we go. And we should be up.
Before 9 o'clock.
There we go.
Yes. Well
There we go.
done.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like me. I
And
don't
I'm
like the echo.
almost. Oops.
It's the echo.
No, that was temporary. It's gone now. Somebody else can check to make sure I'm up on YouTube because I did just take it off.
Yeah, you're up on YouTube.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was gonna I show you up on YouTube as well.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. Because I have to shut it off when otherwise I do get an echo.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon will be late tonight. She's working late, so she'll hop on when she has a chance.
No worries, no worries.
So are
So
we ready
just-
to get going?
Yeah, we are. Because Brent's here.
I was gonna say he was here early, so he's not like the
Yep.
starting gate.
And Jeremy's here today.
Jeremy, where's Jeremy?
He's coming. He's
There you
right
are.
there. Smiling person.
Yes.
I might have to pop to the washroom real quick here. Just
Okay.
noticing. So I'm going to make Colin co-host. And so if people pop in, Colin, can you please
Yep.
let them? I'll be
Got
right
it.
back. Thank you.
Where's
Hey,
Jane?
Jeremy, good to see you. Welcome back.
Hey, Jeremy.
Dusty, it's good to see you tonight, and Tim, Colin.
Hi, Patty.
So I think that we will go ahead and get started. Tim, ball's in your court.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I just want
Yes, Jackie.
Oh, can't hear you, Jackie.
I heard you start, but we're not able to hear you continue. There you are. Did you have something you wanted to say or ask, Jackie?
Looks like her.
yes, I'm having internet problems, so if I don't respond to you, it's because you've either cut out or you're frozen. Some people are freezing on the screen and some people are moving, so I'm not sure what the issue is, but just I want you to be aware of that. I'm not ignoring you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Okay, now you're frozen again. Shoot, this is not going to be fun. Oh, maybe if I change.
Okay.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. Well,
Do you want to start us off, please?
yep. Okay. Well,
I'll just
welcome.
have to fill in my own gaps.
Well, hopefully hopefully that'll work out for you, Jackie, and you'll be able to kind of pop in and out. Hopefully your internet will clear up. But want to start off by welcoming everybody to the 322nd episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. They have been tested and proven to be 80% effective when applied consistently versus mindset that is only 1% effective. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models, and the BDE is Blair's free gift to you. I am Tim Graff. My wife will be joining shortly, Becky Graff. We're your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with the amazing Patty McClurg. Mind models have helped my wife and I in every area of our lives, not only in business, but personally, resolving an 8-year issue in our marriage within a couple of hours, to the navigation of grief and PTSD from a tragic accident that happened to us in 2020, where we lost both of our young daughters. Mind models have allowed us to be more effective and increase our capacities and speed of recovery without traditional counseling. So whether you're joining us for the first time or whether you've been here for a while, we welcome you tonight to the 322nd episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience. And we look forward to getting to know each and every one of you and discussing mind models. If you're joining us on YouTube, please comment, please like, subscribe, And that way we can come back and answer any questions or respond to your comments in the comments section. Or if you haven't yet subscribed, please come back and join us. We are on with the Blair Dunkley Experience every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain or 9 p.m. Eastern. And also, a side note, if you haven't heard, we have a study guide where you can actually get the notes from each of the Blair Dunkley experiences. We started this with episode 317, so you'll get all the notes back to 317, moving up to we're on the 322nd, and moving forward, you'll also get the notes. If you guys have been around here for a little bit, one of the best ways to learn the mind models is to be able to look at them, be able to read them, and go back through them time and time again. One of the best ways that I learned the mind models was just going over them. And each time I went back and I studied the mind models, I pulled something different out of what I was learning. And so getting these insider notes and the study guide is an awesome way to be able to go back and to be able to revisit these mind models to get a little bit more clarity on the depth that these mind models will actually go. And it's just a great way to stay tuned into the Blair Dunkley experience and to learn new skills. It's $35 a month or $300 a year to grab those.
Actually, it's $25 a month.
Right. Yes.
Sorry.
Blair is correct. $25 a month or $300 a year to grab those, and highly recommend it. And with that, welcome to the Blair Dunkley Experience, and we're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any leftovers, any questions at all from prior weeks within this series? We're doing this series on effective communication. If there are no questions or leftovers, Blair, I'm going to give it to you to review the concepts. So this is what, how, and why, based on Blair's research into question concepts, which is really, it's unique, it's pivotal, the only one in the world who has really explored this and put together these observations, which are incredibly functional. So Blair, I'm passing it to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Patty, and welcome to everybody. Thanks so much for jumping on tonight. I very much appreciate it. Pardon me. I do have a bit of a cough, only because it's so dry here. Okay. You know, I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. Yeah, just that of history on, sorry about that, just needing to let that go through. Whew. I'm okay. Okay, so the question concepts are fascinating. Every utterance out of your mouth is filtered through one of 6 question concepts: a who, what, where, when, why, and how. And pardon me. Anyway, my research figured out that there's only these 6. And I believe that since everything is filtered through that, those information channels are very pivotal to how we think, how we perceive, how we act, how we talk, everything about us. And actually, based on that, I went out and I created profiling, which is a way of being able to be aware of how people are thinking, listening to their language pattern, then telling them all about themselves. So basically, that's what it is. But tonight, what this is all about, it's sort of a review of part of the question concepts, which is what, how, and why. In doing my research, what generates a list of one or more things or events? That's what it does 100% of the time without exception. It always generates a list of one or more things or events in a listing format, stated usually not in a logical sequence, but sequentially in terms of what comes out of somebody's mouth or head. They just spew that stuff out. Hows took me a long time to figure out a how, by the way, because you can ask questions based on how, but the how function of the how is action. And that's what I came up with at the end of the day. It's not, you can say, did you do that? And you'll answer that, how did you do that? By creating a list of what's. You'll answer it and go, well, what I did is this. But if you said, how did I do that? And you see, I've got a pen here, and I throw the pen up in the air and I catch it. And then you go, how did you do that? And the person says, like that. That's a proper answer for a how. It's doing the behavior. Now, it took me a very long time to wrap my head around how come we cannot say the how, but we can do the how. And that was the question concept that really taught me that there are disguised question concepts. Because the how of this is the action. It's always action. When you use the words, you're approximating the action with a list of one or more things or events to approximate an action. It's not actually the action, it's an approximation of the action. It's a description of the action, but not the action itself. When you do the action, that action is in fact the how. So if you can wrap your head around it, it's both very deep and very simple all at the same time. Now, whys, the why question concept gives you reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justifications. The how of it, when we jump back to how for a second here and go back to how, hows can only be done in the present tense. It can't be in the past tense, it can't be in the future tense, just in the present tense. And whys, on the other hand, are only past tense. So they are only based in the past. But you can say, how will you do that? But if you listen closely to the answer of somebody who you think, well, I asked a why question that projects somebody into the future, they will answer it as though they've already done it and give you that answer. And that it means that in their mind, it's a past-based structure. So it's not present tense, it's past. Now, if it happens to truly be present tense, the odds are is they're using a disguised what to be present.
Blair, could we play that scenario out real quick? I think that'd
Sure.
be helpful for me to experience it.
Okay, so why did you ask that question?
I don't fully understand what it looks like.
Right, and where does that understanding or lack of understanding come from? Past, present, or future?
It feels present to me.
It feels present to you. Now,
Yeah.
Is that what you don't understand, or is that why you don't understand it? Are you looking for a reason, excuse, rationalization, or justification, or are you seeking to find a list of one or more things or events to understand?
It's a good question. I guess I'm looking for a list of one or more things or events to understand.
Exactly. And that was what I was describing to you before, that if it is the present, you use the why as a disguised what.
Mhm.
Because a what can give you can work in the present, past, or future, but predominantly it's present based. Okay. But we
Okay.
use it all the time and we use it interchangeably. But if I ask you, what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for, Colin? I need to know. Are you trying to interrupt this? What are you doing this for?
I'm trying to interrupt you, Blair.
Yeah, I thought so. Even though it's just, did you notice that he got defensive? Okay, it was just a jestful answer, like humorous, trying to reduce the stress of it, reduce the intensity of it.
Yep.
But it was a stress relieving answer. Makes sense?
Mhm.
And even though I didn't use the why word, I used the what word there, yet you responded to the emotion that was being loaded first, which whats don't do that. Whats work with the information first. But you responded and loaded emotion to redirect my emotion.
Yep.
And that's fine. That's all good. We do this all the time and we do it intuitively. But it took me over 6.5 years of research to start watching these patterns so I could hear literally how somebody's speaking and their language pattern in real time. And I had to define what is a what is the function of a who, what, where, when, why, and how. What are those functions? But how do they work in all conditions, not just some that I like, but all of them? And
Claire,
that
I
meant,
think Jeremy has a question.
sure, Jeremy, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just want to potentially redirect the energy. So Colin, you asked a question and then Blair answered it. Like, can you just inform us where you are with what you now understand?
Where I'm at with what I understand.
I mean, like, do you have the answer you were looking for, or are we
I had the experience I was looking for, yeah.
okay? What was the experience you were looking for?
I wanted to experience the why in real time. That was one
Oh,
thing.
so you were
Yeah.
playing a little possum game with Blair. I see.
Possum. Yeah, I'm not familiar with possum game.
What's that? I can't remember exactly what it is, but like anyway, I didn't want to
I get your
misdirect the
gist.
energy here. Sorry.
Yeah, I get your gist. Yes.
So Colin got what he wanted. Great. I'm going to
Right.
try
So
to find
now
out
what
how
would
I
you
get
like?
what I want. I want to come away with a kernel of understanding of anything that you're saying, because I've heard you say this a number of times. I actually feel like it's been a steady concept that either I listened to in a video recently or we were talking about last week. And so I just want to concretize something so that I feel like I'm making progress for myself. So I wasn't
Perfect.
intending to take the focus away. I was actually looking for Colin, and then he said that he was playing a game, so I got lost in that effort.
Okay. Well,
I didn't
semi-game.
get lost. I lost the effort, I should say.
Okay. No worries. No worries. So what would you like to know specifically? What would help you turn this into concrete?
When I initially opened my mouth, it was based on another concept that was about Colin's understanding. I don't know. All I know is that I get that what is action oriented, and it's the basis of what we want to go forward with, because the other ones are going to detract from our efforts, and they're often
Okay.
going to be emotionally based or in some way invoke emotion, which will inhibit the learning process. That's what I understand.
Okay, that's partially correct. If we can focus in on like the what generates a list of one or more things or events. So it generates that every time, all the time.
And those are actions. Is that
No,
synonymous?
not necessarily. Things are not actions.
But the what and actions, is that correct? I mean, because there's two things
Not
living
quite.
in space.
No, because
Okay.
your actions are how most of the
How?
time.
Okay, so I knew I wasn't sure, so I got that wrong. So how
Right.
are actions?
Correct.
So I
100%
had
of
the original concept off. How are actions? Great. Thank
how
you.
must be actions. Events,
How equals
although our actions are described, like what is going on when you say, like a parade is an event. Can we call a parade an event?
In
Great.
Manhattan tomorrow, 2 days from now. Yes.
Okay, great, perfect. So you're going to watch an event, but it's going to be a what is going on, and the action is going to be the event itself. But the event is what is that event. So it's a parade of some sort. Is that the Christmas parade?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving parade. Close enough.
Exactly.
American Thanksgiving parade. Thank you.
Yes, it's our
So-
Thanksgiving.
I'm not American. Sorry. I'm just Canadian. I'm just Canadian. That's us Canadians. We do this all the time. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm not from the US. Sorry.
No need to apologize. You said
no,
there's a parade. I
that's
thought it was
for
topical.
Canadians.
It made me
We
laugh.
always say I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, that
That's
too.
just stupid
Yes.
humor of mine. Canadian stupid humor. Okay.
Got you.
But so that's really what's going on with this.
Claire,
Yes,
Claire,
go ahead.
might it be helpful to use the success formula as an illustration?
Yes, Patty, how about
For the-
you came up with that so nicely. I agree. So share.
Okay. We have a mind model, Jeremy, called the success formula. And the success formula is broken into who, what, how. Okay, that's the structure of the success formula is who, what, how. So the who is usually you. So we just start with that. That really doesn't change much. Thank you, Colin, for putting that in the chat. So the what then is the historical. So what happened? It answers the question, what happened?
Yeah,
Which
the
will
first
give
one.
us the first what. Yes, the who, what, I'm going through them in order. The first what is historical. So it answers the question, what happened? So when someone asks you a question, what happened? What words do you use lists to tell them what happened? It's like, this is what happened. And you list one or more things or events that happened. Then the second what is what might you do about that? And that then becomes the action plan. So the second what in that is the action plan. It's the
Precursor to the how.
precursor to the how. And then the how is the doing of the thing. Whatever the thing is, the doing of the thing, the implementation of the action plan is the how.
Okay.
Does that offer you some clarity? Does that help at all?
Well, it puts a framework and a structure around some of this initial discussion that I'm understanding about the journalist world, right? The who, what, when, where, and how, why, and how. Like that's how I was taught in the school system.
Yes,
right?
I learned that as well.
Right.
I learned
So
that as well.
so we were suggesting earlier that like, how is where it's at, and that's an action-oriented thing. But this success formula is saying, let's isolate these four things. And I guess now what I would love to know is if we could kind of explain how you came about the success formula as a structure that would help this all. Like, can we put it into actually an example, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, I'd like to just offer a little bit of clarity, if I may, be between the journalistic 5 W's and an H and the question concepts 5 W's and an H. Okay, the 5 W's and an H from a journalistic point of view are questions to glean information. The 5 W's and H within a mind model context within Blair's research are functional. They're the way we process. They are the foundational concepts through which we filter our world. So even though you have the journalistic way to gather information and formulate an article, if you can set that aside,
Oh, I was setting
at
it
the
aside.
function
I
part.
used that as an example to show you how we're not. I was talking about that. My explicit understanding is that we're not talking about the journalistic understanding.
Yes,
So
that is
correct.
true.
that's not even
Okay.
part of this conversation.
All right. So you wish to know the history of the success formula. Am I understanding your question? Where did it come from?
I want to concretize an understanding through the experience of tonight where I can say, like, I understand the mind model and I'm not just swimming. I mean, I reached out to you, I reached out to Tim and Becky this past week, and I listened to a past thing. I've been here for 4 weeks. So I've just been committing myself to be here, but now I'm applying myself, I'm putting myself out there, I'm taking the risk to say, I'd like to feel a conscious confidence about conscious competence about a sense that, like, okay, I've got enough things to hook into, so now I can follow a conversation without just continually, you know.
Yes, I appreciate that. You had mentioned a question within the success formula. Can you restate your question as to
Yeah,
what might
so
help
so
you?
my initial question based on what Colin was doing was to kind of like say, Blair had led the discussion and he was talking
Right.
about the structure of what each, who and what's and how they relate. And then
Mhm.
you came in and you said, can I suggest that we use the success formula? And then Blair passed the baton to you. So
Right.
you explained to me the success formula as it is now in the chat, and I have a better understanding of it. So my question is, could we take it a step further where we could actually apply, in what context would this success formula actually come into reality? Like, what would be
I'd like to address that.
Okay, go, Blair.
Actually, I'd like to address it from where I discovered it from. When I was working with a billionaire and quite a few millionaires at the time, I noticed their language pattern. And their language pattern was different than their subordinates frequently, where they did not go to why. They were looking for who was them. They would do it. And they would generally describe what the situation was that they were looking to have their team overcome. At that point, they sort of fall into two groups. One group of owners would ask questions around how do we build, or what is the action plan that we need here? And then assign that to different people or a person to get that done and make that happen. So that was the more successful model. The other one would be to just have it where the person goes out there, has the who, historical what, and then they figure out what you need to do and how you need to do it, and just get out there and do it. The one that was the most successful was the first one, because he worked with his teams to have them share a common process of understanding the history and understanding what the action plan of what needs to get done, and then getting down the execution into hows. And I didn't learn about the how until they would come back for their second, third, or fourth meeting after people made attempts to start doing it. And the one owner that I'm thinking of in particular would literally ask his people, how did that work out for you? What happened and how did that work? What happened, historical what, but going back to how did that work? He wants to hear the action orientation of the people. Getting quite frustrated when one of the individuals was just, he referred to it as, all you're doing is spinning your wheels, is mental masturbation. It was his quote. And I found that rather interesting, but not necessarily all that effective. Jeremy.
So I'm reminded in my memory of the concrete construction company.
Yes.
And the bottleneck, because The guy
Yes.
who was in control was expecting that someone down the hallway would have cut the costs on the cost issue, and because he was bureaucratic, like nothing got done. That's not the conversation you're having about the billionaire, but was it being used at that time for this same conversation, or was it something totally different?
No, it eventually was. But if you go back to my conversation that I had in the third iteration, where my first attempt to have the conversation, I was asking who's and finding out the historical what's. And then I was getting the action plans. And the R&D manager did the how because he realized that his assumed how was not getting done by his director.
Right.
So all I was doing, and it's prudent of you to bring that up, and all I did is stuck to the success formula, basically, in my questioning skills. Who, what, how. That's it.
Okay.
And what did I get? 20 minutes later, I had success.
I was going to say, Jeremy, may I offer you a simple non-business real life thing that actually fits into the success formula?
Yeah, that's essentially what I was
Because the
asking for, and
success
then Blair helped
formula,
me.
the
Thank you.
success formula can be applied to all kinds of things, not just big business things.
Mhm,
You know, my mom lives a distance away from me,
mhm,
and she just celebrated her 96th birthday. She
Congratulations.
has some difficulty hearing, and when I have for a very long time since my father passed, I call her every night so that she has someone to tell about her day, so that she has a voice to hear.
mhm.
A couple months ago, I noticed that her responses to me were not always in context with the conversation.
Mhm.
So, who is me? What? Historically, I noticed her responses are not in context. So, my second what is, what might I do about that? And I came up with the action plan of writing her letters. So, my how is I write letters to her 3 times a week. She is overjoyed with having something she can read, so she is able to get all the information. She's able to reread it as often as she likes. And that was a success. That worked well. But the who, me, the what, she's not getting all the information. Her responses are not aligning with the conversation. What might I do about that? My action plan, write letters. My how, I write letters. I send letters 3 times a week. So it's a very simple thing. But the how, misspeak. The second what is what might I do? And that helps you formulate the action plan. What might I do? And you can add specifically, you can add right now, you can add, but the formulation of the action plan, it comes out of a question, a what question for the second what.
So could we say that there's a pivot between the who, the what historical, then there's that pivot point, and then the what
Yes.
and how? Because those two are
Yes.
like, they're on their way towards the solution, whereas the who and the
Yes.
what are the data that brought us to what needs to happen. Then
Exactly.
we pivot and head towards the solution with the
Yes.
second what and the how.
Yes, you can. You can absolutely say that. Does that help with your understanding?
It does. It does.
So where are you now with feeling like you have traction with the mind models, with something?
Well, I feel like I have traction with this success formula, and I suppose if I were to go back in, or if Blair were to continue to talk about what he was talking about, I would potentially be a little bit more further along, and maybe at some point I would be able to bridge the gap even more so.
Okay.
And
So
this is fine. Like, I mean, you're relatively new here, as you said. And Jeremy, I have all the time and patience in the world for you. I mean, seriously, Yeah, we all have put in time to get our clarity. Now it's your turn. Okay, so I like that. I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you.
Jackie, did you have something to share?
Still trying to find clarity. I mean, there's levels and there's layers, and Shannon actually was mentioning it. I was actually just reviewing last week because I had power outages, and if you want to see somebody really grow, Jeremy, Shannon is a wonderful person to see unfold.
That's Patty's daughter.
That's
Mhm.
correct, yeah. But she's still individual.
Very much so.
Exactly.
Yeah, she was here, I think it was last week.
Yeah, yeah.
And she may still be joining us.
Yeah, she's working late tonight, so she may hop on later, but yeah. So the getting the understanding of the function of the what how, because they go together, you know, the what how in communication and the why. So why being sort of a circle that keeps you stuck in the past,
Right.
and then the what's being the ability to move forward in the present with a
Right.
how.
So I think I get that the why invokes a humanly conditional emotional response, and it's just hardwired into our DNA because of the way
Yes.
we are. So if we avoid the whys and we remember the second part of the success formula in terms of like we already ostensibly knew what the who and the what were, so we're in the what how where we're going to ask a question that's going to feed the system of energy in terms of have this person use their mind in a way that's going to value everyone by being in the midst of how are we going to move forward.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Right. And one of the things that we're going to get to tonight is, I mean, hopefully we'll get to it tonight, who knows? Because we're going to keep at this series as long as it takes. For the information is so rich that there isn't a set amount that we're going to cover tonight. But we can't just avoid all the whys in our life. The things that trigger emotions that hook back into past experiences. So part of the key is to recognize when yourself with you. Are you in a why? Are you in the past or the present? Are you in the future? Where is your thinking? If all change happens in the present and you're wanting to move forward with something, then it's important to recognize where you are in space-time. What is going on in your life? And so when you recognize, oh, you know, I'm feeling so many feelings right now that I can hardly think.
I got to
Can't come
jump
up
in.
with anything. Then you're likely in the back of your brain, and curiosity in the questions is what moves you to the prefrontal cortex so that you can formulate questions, so that you can form an action plan, so you can have a what how. I see you nodding. Can you tell me how you understand that?
I'm in the back of my brain waiting for Blair to say what he needs to say, hoping to
Oh.
get to the front of my brain.
Okay.
All right.
I was
Go,
just going
Blair.
to share my day. I've been super stressed today, carrying more stress than I normally do at any time. I engaged with the marketing company to put out and to get things going for Mind Model Method Coach training, or Phobia Freedom Formula. I'll work through that when we have our launch, but I'd like to do it with Mind Model Method Coach training and IBC, Igniting the Buying Conversation. I have had so many contracts that I've engaged with people who are marketers who have fallen short basically blamed me for their lack of ability to get a result with marketing. And it's cost me multiple six figures in all of that stuff. Today, although it is only five figures this time, I engaged somebody else. But I was dealing with stress about being in a why, because why took me back to the past, did all of that, and stressed me out enormously because of all the stuff I just shared with you. Lots of money down the drain, not much to show for it. You know, all the marketing and sales that I have done to make this company where it is today. However, trying to leverage myself, which I know I have to do, but I have to do it effectively in some way, shape, or form. The number of ineffective attempts is just the facts that I've gone through. It doesn't mean that I can push them aside. It means that I needed to acknowledge them and go beyond. That's not an easy thing to do. And the amount of stress I've been carrying today is palpable, to the point where I was actually wondering if I might be having a mini episode of something in my head, a mini stroke, but I couldn't find the attributes for that. Just the amount of tension, though, was huge today.
So Blair, where were you feeling it in your body?
Both in my head and around my neck and shoulders, mostly.
What names and labels did you put to it?
Well, initially, I thought, when I got around to naming and labeling it more accurately, scared, frustrated,
Yeah.
terrorized, up. I've got a few other very graphic ones that I described it as, like I'll put it politely, like I was soiling myself, and metaphorically, with everything, all the stress I'm going through, and humiliating myself in my mind, like all of that kind of stuff.
Where would those have taken place, past, present, or future?
All in the past.
All
Like
in
I
the-
got all wise.
And the terror would be where?
It would be a past future why.
Yeah.
Like it would go from a why into a future what.
Mhm.
And then that what would reflect immediately back to, why are you doing this to yourself again? And so I'm giving myself a judgment, and I'm judging myself as stupid, dumb, and you're just throwing good money after bad. Like,
What did
when
you
are you
do
going
to
to
move
learn?
yourself out of that space?
Started creating a list of questions that I needed to get in to ask Melissa, the person that I hired, and created a list of questions to get myself back into the present, but to see if I could find a chink in her armor on how she responded, so that she would, although I've bought a done for you, was she going to hold me accountable for her shortcomings? That has been the pattern of all of the marketers I've had in the past. And the other one that I talked with earlier today to get a compare and contrast. And so that was huge. Sure, Jackie, jump in there.
I'm just curious about people's understanding about how a why from the past can freeze you in the moment because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
projecting it into the future. I've had many experiences with this, and it freezes me in space
Yep.
and time, and I can't create an out. Because what I do is I take my past experiences when I'm trying to make a decision now, and it's influencing it and coloring the future in a ineffective, I was going to say negative, but ineffective way. So what that did do to me before I got curious was freeze me in my spot, and I didn't have any hows because
Yes.
my past whys skipped over and made my potential future look so scary. I didn't want to go there.
Exactly.
And this is where really important when Shannon talks about test yourself, test it. I could be right, I could be wrong. That was very important for me when I was reviewing the YouTube
Yes.
from last week.
Brent?
Absolutely huge.
Yes. If I may, Jeremy, I know if you can remember, I know you were working on the success formula, and I was wondering if you would like to take a stab at what Blair had explained and point out the success formula through what he had just gone through.
Well, tip of the hat to Colin, who's done some of that already in the chat. But so Blair is the who,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And the first the historical was that he's had a lot of painful financial experiences with several different marketing people to the tune of, it sounds like $500,000, maybe more. And
Not quite 500,000, but close.
okay, and it was Canadian pounds anyway, just to be specific.
So that was 25 cents US.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what my Canadian friend who lives in the US, Tyler, would have said. But Blair, that's only 25 cents in the US, so don't worry about it.
If you really want to get crazy, they're called loonies. I don't know why, but that's what they call the Canadian exchange dollar. Anyway, so
toonies.
Toonies or loonies?
No, toonie. Well, a bit of both, but it's for a $2 coin.
Okay. Well, on the foreign exchange market, the nickname for the Canadian pound is
Or
a
dollar.
loonie.
It's a dollar.
Actually, Leslie said Canadian pounds too. Anyway, I'm on a
No, he's questioning that,
transgression.
saying Canadian pounds?
I guess I
No.
was wrong. Okay.
Yeah, Canadian dollar.
Thank you for humoring that transgression. Going back to where we were. So the what historically is that he has this, past, the bad thing that happened in the past is going to happen again in the future. So that's more of the what that was historical. So we really haven't gotten, well, actually, in his efforts to get to the what to now, he was sort of like testing Melissa Eng.
Yes.
And sort of doing that. And this is ostensibly the first few days you've hired her, yes?
I just engaged her today.
Okay, so you're like vetting her in a sense. That's
It's been
your-
vetting her since last week.
Okay, right. So I don't think we've gotten to a how yet, because we were just, that's when Patty, I think, or Jacqueline stepped in, and so we're not quite at the how unless I misunderstood something.
One of the key things that I do want to point out in what you said, which is 100% accurate, but I don't think you heard yourself, is you specifically stated that I was in my past and projecting it into the future. Okay?
Yeah.
When
Absolutely.
does change happen?
In the now.
Only in the now.
Right.
So what Jackie was talking about earlier was being totally frozen. And when you do a
Right.
past future, you stay frozen.
Right.
Now, the only thing that you can do generally in that scenario, or one of the most common things that you wind up doing to yourself in that past future, is creating stress, because you can't change and you can't get out of it. Okay? So all you can do is worry or stress yourself one way or the other. I know this. So what I tried to do was to get myself back to the present and focus in on my questions and Melissa Ng's answers, and run that little test to see how she answered. Because I did that earlier today with another guy, Cairo, and Cairo, great guy, but he kept on talking to me about what he would do for me and then what I'd need to do. So he'd set up stuff, but I'm like the executor, and I know myself. I'm not the person to be doing that, yet I'm trying to hire him to get the job done, yet he's passing the most critical portion back to me.
Right. So
which is the same language pattern that every other marketer who screwed me out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, screwed me out of, that I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to, did. Yes, Jeremy.
Blair, so we're back in your what? The historic.
Correct.
What?
And
You're
back in my
asking me?
Did you hear him get emotional and begin
Yes,
to?
that's why I raised my hand, because I wanted to respectfully
So
stop
he
him.
was started in his historical what, but did he move into himself into a why when he was telling you?
Yeah, because we're not
Yes,
in how.
ta-da!
We've never gotten
that-
to how just yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
But what I also
Sort
know
of.
is that
yeah.
sorry.
You're saying we didn't get a how in there, but what was when Blair asked the questions to the two individuals, what was that? Was that a what or a how?
Well, he was canvassing or vetting them to get to their how.
Yes, but what Blair
But it
was
was
doing,
coming-
was that a what or was that a how for Blair?
I would say it was a what, because he hadn't really gotten to, hey, you know what? I need you to do this. I don't want to have to, run my hamster wheel trying to see if you're the right person for me. I need to know, are you going to do this for me, and how are you going to do it? He needs to ask them what their how is, in my judgment.
There's actually a subtext. There's actually a subtext going on to the success formula, which is something that I know Tim and Becky use an awful lot, and it's IBER, intention, behavior, evaluation, result. So when Blair was in his what might I do now, he broke that down into some intentions and behaviors. What can he do? He can compare and contrast one marketer against another. He can ask questions. So he had little mini tests, little mini hows that were born out of that second what, until he got to his first how is he signed a contract today. That was an action that he took today. But Tim, can you talk a little bit about how the intention, behavior, evaluation, result functions in your world?
I just want to acknowledge right there for a second there and say I get where you're going, Brent. Jeremy is not quite specific enough to delineate the two. We'll get him there, but he's got a good foundational section of how he's seeing it. Like it's strong foundation with what he said. I don't want to clutter it up. You're just fine-tuning things. Okay, so good job. I didn't want to ignore that either. Okay. If you've got questions with that, Jeremy, you can ask me, but it's in experiences. Some experience is going to be required to see the nuances of you were including Brent was showing the what and how I was behaving or trying to get you to see the variation. You got the big what, and that's the most important piece to see to start off with. So you saw that. Then there is a transition to a how, okay? But that's subtler.
Had you mentioned the how?
Yes.
The only brief, he mentioned that he signed a contract.
Brent, what was your perception?
Oh, yes. You stated you had created a list of what you might do. You're going through things, what you might do. That's your new what, your list of action plan. And then he took action on that action plan to get to signing the contract. And then he
Yes.
was at the questions, the interaction. So Blair and his act of asking questions that's a action.
Yeah.
So that's what I was getting, trying to get to that small piece. It's not completely obvious. It's more subtle, but that's where
Yeah.
I was getting to, just to
Yeah,
help
I
you
was
get more grasp
because it
on
slides into that
success
intention
formula.
behavior evaluation result.
Yeah, and
And
it does, and it goes into that too.
so
So there's
it
lots of
slides
ways
into
to skin
the
the
micro
cat.
steps to get
And
to where
Jackie,
you
you're
want
right.
to go.
Fail fast, falling forward. That's part of
That's
it.
Jackie
It's
is not being obscene.
no.
Yeah, yeah. Because he had his
That
plan on
is
what he was going
my
to do, and then he
model.
did that. That's what I was getting towards. He created that list of what he might do, and then he took a step towards doing that and seeing how that would come out, testing that, and then he would use the success formula again on that piece, and then go ahead and continue that success formula in each other step through that. So it's not, it could be one big one, and then in between each little one, you're doing the same, you're using it again. So it's just more to it. But yeah, it's you're grasping it well. I just was trying to help you get a little bit more on the subtler piece. That's where I was heading.
Thank you.
Okay. So Tim, how do you use the IBER in your life when you're navigating? Communication, intention,
So one of the
action.
biggest things, I was going to say, one of the biggest things that Becky and I have used Iber for in our life is, every now and then we have triggering moments that'll come up, with the loss of our girls. And I know Becky can speak to this as well as, she has these moments where, because when we lost our girls passed away tragically in 2020 to a flash flood. And Becky was actually with our girls and almost lost her life when this happened. And so, as you can imagine, like just getting in the shower, turning on the water, hearing little kids scream, like these kinds of things will bring up triggering moments, that PTSD, where she's suddenly the emotions will hit. And I have my part in this as well. I was there that day in the canyon, even though I wasn't necessarily in the flood, but there are still these emotions and these things that will set off triggers. And so one of the biggest things that we use Iber for is facing those uncomfortable moments when we're caught in a triggering situation or something. We will face those head on, and we do use Iber because the intention is we don't want to be ruled by that fear. We don't want to be ruled by that emotion. And so the intention is to face that triggering moment or that thing. A prime example of this is we went back to the canyon where this happened just a couple months after uh, this all unfolded. And we did that intentionally because this is a canyon that we've enjoyed hiking many, many, many times. It's got a lot of amazing memories as well. And we didn't want this one time to sway all those great memories. We also didn't want to be in a situation where we couldn't step foot in a canyon or to have those amazing experiences again. And so we wanted to face that trigger head on. We wanted to face the thing that happened in that canyon. And it was intentional that we went back to the canyon. And the behavior was us actually going there. We hiked the canyon expecting that as we hiked up the canyon, like we were going to completely fall apart, and we had all of these judgments, if you will, that we placed on us going back there and what we thought was going to happen, to Jackie's point of the failing fast, falling forward. But the behavior was we went to the canyon, we tested this to see what would actually happen in the moment, in the present. And so we went, and actually, what became of that was an amazing experience. We found ourselves in the canyon. It was extremely peaceful. And the things that we thought were going to happen, we actually experienced the complete opposite of all the feelings that we were going to have, these hurt feelings and being carried out of the canyon like we thought we were going to, actually didn't happen. We found ourselves surrounded by peace. And we've gone back multiple times since then. And we have just, I mean, it's become a very sacred place for us. And had we not gone back that first time, had we not set the intention to go back and to face that and actually do the behavior and then evaluate after the fact, like, wow, that was, not what we thought it was going to be. The result now is we can go back to this canyon. We have a very sacred place and a very amazing experience every time we've gone back. So we set our intention, we did the behavior, we evaluated actually what was happening while we were there in the present. And every time we go back, and we have the result of now being able to go back. And we do this throughout, like, not just, that's just one example, but anytime those triggering moments come up, anytime we face something hard, that is kind of the process that we run through. What is the intention? What do we want the result to be? And we set that intention, we do the behavior, we evaluate it, and then our result becomes of that. It's very similar to the failing fast, falling forward. We want to go forward, we want to test and see what is actually real in the situation, what is actually going to happen, because we don't know till we're actually in that present moment. Yes, Jackie.
It's quite understandable that you thought that you were going to be triggered, but that's very interesting because that's an assumption.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting when you test, you don't always get the not the desired result or the past going into the future
Where you think
result, if you kind of know what I mean, it's surprising. And I'm so happy to hear that is happening for you. It's not an easy thing to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, we thought based on past, right? Based on what happened, that historical we were projecting that in the future, like we're going to be a mess, we're going to need to be carried out of the canyon. We had all these assumptions and these judgments that we were expecting to happen. But when we actually tested it, when we actually did the behavior, and then when we were there evaluating that behavior, we found a completely different result. And same thing with the failing fast, falling forward. When we fail fast, so to speak, falling forward, when we actually just take that step, even though we're not, we just stay curious and we move forward. That failing fast, we're essentially falling forward into a new desired outcome. We're actually testing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Do you have anything you want to add to that, hon?
I have no voice, you guys. I apologize.
Sorry, she's
What was that? You can whisper.
You lucky guy. You have such your voice your wife has such a sexy voice tonight.
She's been getting over an illness, and so yeah, I just didn't know if you don't have to if you don't.
I'll save it.
Okay.
Susan, I'm going to interrupt just a minute.
Go for it, Patty.
Shane's got to take off. We're getting very close to the wrap up. Shane, thank you for joining us. Give our best to Christy.
Yes.
Do you have anything you'd like to say before you go, or shall we just read from the chat? Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. And again, give our best to Christy and happy Thanksgiving for you guys. Okay.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
All righty. Bye-bye. We'll go back to what he put in the chat when we do our wrap up. Go ahead, Becky.
Historical success formula, right? When we're talking about the historical what's, it's important to harness the power of the success formula so that you don't keep bouncing like we've been talking about. In our situation, our historical what could keep us stuck.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, right? What's the high probability? Jackie, right? Our assumptions, high probability, if I've experienced this level, that this might happen again. But when we can harness the power of what what's are and not the why, what do I know about this? Historically, what happened? What do I know about the situation? It's a canyon, like you can list the what's. Sorry, guys. You can choose to harness the process of who, me, us, what happened, what I want to do about it, and then make your plan to move forward, which ties into what Tim's talking about with the IBER, right? The result that we want is not to be limited by our experience or to be consistently trapped by trauma. We want to heal and we want to be able to experience the fullness of life. And what mind models have done, each one in their own application, have allowed us to do that. The success formula, IBER, general versus specific, some of these concepts that we're talking about take layers, like's been talked about. And when we combine them together, that's where the true utility is. Like, how does this apply to me? Whether it's business, whether it's personal, you can do that.
And to just share, like, one of the things that we talked about last week with the self-situation other as well, is that's another mind model that I personally come back to quite a bit. And, just that recognition of what do I have control over? I have control over myself. That day in the canyon, the situation was what it was. I can't control the weather. I can't, I mean, obviously, weather does what it will do. Can't control the situation, can't control the others involved in the canyon, all of these things. And so keeping that in perspective as well as we approach any of these, I mean, to Becky's point, all the different mind models have had their place in us being able to process effectively and to move forward. And just keeping in perspective, what do I have control over? What is going on? And making that list. What do I want to do? That action plan moving forward. And then how might I do that? And actually taking the action, testing it, reevaluating, so on and so forth. And that's one of the processes we keep relying on. And honestly, it's shortened so many experiences. Like Becky said, with what we've been through, could be very easy for us to get stuck and to in that past future loop and the what ifs and all these things. But with these mind models, we've been able to use them to ask ourselves the question and be able to move forward using each one of them. So
Yes, Jeremy.
Just for my own clarity, because I have a lot of data that I've filtered through the time that I've been here, I'm going to call it the canyon is not the 8-year issue that's mentioned in the preamble each week.
No.
Correct?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. We had an issue, and I won't go into specifics of it, but we had an issue that between the two of us, that for 8 years, the first 8 years of our marriage, that we were unable to resolve. And it's because we both, Blair shared the story last week about the concrete plant and the communication breakdown. And it's very similar to what Becky and I had going on. There was a lack in communication. We were not, what I thought was going on was not what she thought was going on. And there was a break of communication between the two of us. And we both saw our side of it, but there was a gap in the middle as to what was actually going on and seeing each other's side. And it was 2 hours when we met Blair, we started learning these skill sets. We actually went method coach. Yeah, we went through the Mind Model Method coaching program, and we were sitting in. It was like the second day, and we learned naming and labeling and self-situation and some of these concepts that we've been talking about. And all of a sudden we both looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, these are the missing pieces that we have not, that and we were able within just a couple hours using these skill sets to be able to put an 8-year issue, and we got clarity of where each of us were coming from and be able to gain that clarity that we could move forward from that. And we resolved an 8-year issue within a couple hours.
And I want to add, like, it wasn't smooth, guys.
No.
It wasn't a smooth 2 hours, but 2 hours versus 8 years, being able to get utility. We both had to identify what was real versus what our reality, what our perception was, and get curious about what the other person saw, enough to find alignment, to identify what was the thing. Not our perception of the thing, but like what is it? And then an IBER, again, we wanted the result is we didn't want this issue to cycle through again, right? We're good for a bit and then all of a sudden it pops up again.
Yep.
And so our intention was to work on it and get to root cause. So our behavior in this was getting curious, naming and labeling, choosing to identify what was real versus, again, our perspective, and get curious with each other. And then we've been able to keep that because we were able to evaluate, does this work for you? Does this work for me? Are we in alignment with leaving the past in the past and not cycling back and saying, well, it happened once, it's going to happen again, right? Our cycle is give it 3 months and it's back. Can we choose and trust that that's behind us and choose to move forward together? And so again, the utility, when you can understand the concept and then how it applies, the how is the doing, and then testing it, like we've talked about tonight. Excuse me.
Yeah, Jeremy.
So I suggest that this is a very interesting moment because based on what you just said, this would be really a full circle moment to invite Blair to get to where he needs to be. So tomorrow he has less stress working with Melissa Ang.
Well, actually, I didn't quite get there, but I've already gotten there. I was just telling you the story of where I was, and then it was sort of 3/4 of the way done. And I'm actually decompressing on the call right now, on the call, hearing all this stuff, going through in my mind, identifying all the mind models I used, getting those confirmed, recognizing that I was in self situation another, or self other situation, IBER, doing a a success formula, which is really good. I just yawned, which is a thing of de-stressing. So just yawning is a great sign of de-stressing. And just letting it all go. So I go, yeah, it's not going to be gone till I get results. And I make that as the only thing that I see that I know consistently within myself is when I get a result, that is a thing that I can park this stuff that before the result, when I get the result, the stuff before the result can now go into my past. I don't tend to drag it along with me. And that's just my model. I'm not suggesting that that's other people's model, although I've seen it done quite a bit. It's not consistent enough. It doesn't fit that 80% effectiveness thing. Some people can drop things. I usually can, but I can't do it consistently. But this time I've been, I want to say beaten up, but things have not gone effectively for me financially with putting all that money into marketing. And if I get a result this time, which I hired somebody who has a guarantee that I don't pay more to her just because it hasn't worked out, she promises to get my full capital back plus a profit at her dime if it doesn't work out. And she's never had to use that guarantee. So I love that. So that's really, really effective for me. A big thing. Yeah, Jackie, thumbs up. That's the other reason that I didn't go with the other guy. So I just stuck with somebody who's got a guarantee and is willing to use it. And her language pattern stayed consistent. It was in what's and hows, no drifting into whys.
Mm-hmm.
And the other guy drifted in and out of what, why, and why, how.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that. I didn't like that. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah.
Well, Blair, I remember way back in the day,
Yeah, really.
if you did not get anything out of the course, you would give a full money refund.
Yes.
But he was very smart. He asked it at the end of the first day. Don't ask it at the end of the week. He asked at the end of the first day.
Yeah.
And nobody ever put their hand up, because usually by the end of the first day, everybody was in and already had got their perceived value out of it. So I think, yeah, Blair, I think you could probably find great comfort in that. I would too. I mean, hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's
finally
really,
somebody will put their money where their mouth is like I do.
it's also something different. It's
Yeah.
it's a different approach. So I'm looking forward to hearing more on that. I think we need to get into wrap up.
I agree.
Y'all, good to continue to pursue this another week. As I think the discussions have been very profitable and there's so much more we could cover. So thanks, Leslie. I appreciate that.
Yes, me too, Leslie.
If we go ahead and into wrap up, Leslie, would you like to start us off? Are you able to be seen and heard? There you go.
Yes, thank you. The video was jumpy and I find it distracting for everybody. It distracts me, it must distract you. So that's
thoughtful. Thank you, Leslie.
I enjoyed what I'm hearing, and it's hopefully I wrote it out. I had to write it out, my thought here. So allow me to read it.
Certainly.
Our discussion centers in the first person. What about the perspective of trying to help the second person? And in this, what I'm saying is, so how would you take someone who frequently gets anxious in a historical what and projects fear into the future? And there's a lot of anger about this, and that there's little hope in the resolve that has been figured out. But because it's not an immediate resolve, are stuck in a why and is asking repeatedly as to what historically happened. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does, but I'm hoping that maybe we might consider that at some point and discuss that. I would find value in that. Because it's a communication situation that I'm finding repeating, and I'm learning so much about these question concepts, but it's trying to make a spot-on application situation. But
so for me,
I've got a 9 for tonight. I think this could digress into a long discussion. So I don't want to take up all our wrap-up time on this, but if there's a 2-word answer, I'll take it.
well, Jackie wrote down in the chat, use the word now. And because your description jumps over, and that's what I needed to do today, was keep pulling myself back into the now. Because I was doing a past future loop and stressing myself out, scaring myself a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I needed
it's like when we were talking earlier about Tim and Becky's experience into the canyon. Is like, what are we assuming? What are we expecting? How about we just put ourselves into the now and experience what we are actually doing?
Yeah, that Shannon mentioned that with her example last week too.
Oh,
so
good for her.
No, it's okay. That it's something that needs to be repeated often and often and often. We all struggle with that. We all struggle because our assumptions and our view of the future is so real to us that we have all the emotions going on, for something that has not happened yet. And that's the way we can terrorize ourselves unless we bring ourselves back to the present moment. So
That's
thank you
right.
for that, Jackie. Do you want to give us your wrap up while you're
No,
sort
I
of
don't.
in the zone here?
I don't want to do that. I just want to say, where am I right now? Not where
Okay.
the other person is. Where am I? Oh, well,
Mhm.
I'm expecting this blah, 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 blah. Well, you're going to attract that.
Mhm. That is also true.
And I'm not ready to wrap up yet.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Is that all right?
Oh, yes, sure.
Okay.
You're so polite.
Shane put his, he's like, got to jump on another call. Thank you for the evening. 8 for me. Takeaway was, this chat is such itty bitty writing. Takeaway was about learning the success formula and always rely on fundamental mind model stacks. So that was Shane. Lori, are you
Lori
able
just
to
put
jump on?
comments in, or
I'm
she
sorry.
just put her comments in the
Do
chat.
you see? Because I was looking for it. Oh,
It's
there you
down
are.
at the
Thanks,
bottom.
everyone. Great conversation. A 9 for me. So that's Lori's wrap up. Jeremy, would you like to tell us something that worked for you tonight?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like the progression or the progression of my experience in terms of last week asking for people to connect with, and then Colin giving me 3 people from the group and me reaching out and having communication, and then having had that underneath me, so to speak, when I came in tonight, gave me the confidence to take the group time to, ask for a focus that where I could sort of actually dig in and spend what felt like maybe 20 or more minutes. And so that was really helpful because I took ownership over the fact that I wanted to learn something, and I tuned in very carefully to make sure that what I was doing was contributing to everybody and it wasn't just, focused on me. So I felt an 8 earlier on because I knew we were going to be doing this. So I felt like for me that was like I owned my own success, and I gave myself an 8.
Do you
So
see the success formula in what you just shared in your wrap up?
Yeah, it was subliminal until
Yeah,
this moment. Yes.
yeah. Well done, Jeremy. Well done, and
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Got Lori,
Oh,
Jackie,
and
and
I'm
Lisa.
sorry, I just want to say one other thing. I do want to acknowledge how meaningful it is that Tim and Becky shared their story, because to me, in my experience of life, like that's one of those things where you have a curiosity about something when you've heard about people's life story that's like that, and you kind of feel like tentative around them because you're curious, but you don't want to, socially um, affect them. And yet it was offered freely and there was a depth to it. And I felt like I was invited, and there was just a lot. I felt like it was a generous offer. And I'm starting to feel a little emotional. But I just felt like it was a gift to hear that story because like you don't always I don't know people who have that experience, and now I do. And then I also got to hear it directly, and I don't have questions anymore. So I felt that was actually I would give that 2 more points to take it to a 10.
Thank you. Jeremy, just for your information, Becky has written a book about their experience called Swept Away,
Mm,
and you can find that on Amazon. It's a profound read and
mm.
very, very worth the time. So let's see. Brent, would you like to give us your wrap up?
Yeah. Gotta say, I wasn't quite grasping anything. If I picked up anything until the wrap up, like it usually hits me, it doesn't usually hit me until some in the middle, but today it was at the end. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy, for participating, and allowing me to ask you those questions and work with you a little bit there. Um, but digging in and seeing how the what's like the whys and getting to the what's and then how the success formula worked. but then seeing it with Blair and Tim and Becky, how the mind models is not just one specific one, how they work together. You use them all and how they flow together. And you can have mini stacks, but also how they just back up to one another. The IBER, the evaluations, the success formula that they were using, that Tim and Becky were um, showing us how that worked for them in both two parts of their life, how that worked. So it just shows how a little bit more depth on the mind models instead of as we're separating them out and getting into them more, get to see it as they're used, effectively to to work on if there's issues or to solve something, get to your desired result that you're looking for. For me, then I give it a 9 for me
Oh,
tonight.
thank you. I appreciate that. Tim and Becky, you want to give us your wrap up?
I'm gonna go first because I don't have a voice.
You can just go.
Count them. 9.
9.
Yes.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
I'm married to this guy. I appreciate the conversation. Jeremy, thank you so much for leaning in and being open to ask the questions that you did, because it provides a lot of insight, not only for you, but for the group. And
Yes.
Brent, well done, my friend, in leading in and taking the initiative to help Jeremy anchor some things in. Sometimes we think we have the concept generally, but what you did was very well done. And I appreciate the conversations.
So I'm not going to say ditto, but I am going to say she took it from no. I'm going to go 9.2 just because she said 9, because I was thinking 9. No, 9.2 for me tonight. Again, I just want to echo, thank you, Jeremy, for leaning in. That is, I remember when we first started our journey in my models, and the best way to learn is to lean in, to ask the questions, to speak up. It's one thing I love about Jackie. Jackie is willing to ask the questions. She's willing to, to come in there and insights. And that's one of the quickest ways to learn the my models, is to just lean in and ask the questions and, to use your words, hijack the meeting. That's what we're here for, is to, to learn the my models. And what better way to learn them than to actually lean in, ask the questions, and get clarity. And so I mean, that really worked for me tonight. Just you asking the questions, it brought up an amazing conversation, and there's so much came out of that. And then Brent, again, well done, and leaning in and using the skills that you've learned here and applying them. And that really worked for me. Jackie, I loved your I loved your pushback to Patty just a minute ago. Just your self-confidence, your ability to set your boundaries, and you speak up, you share, and then when you don't want to, you set that boundary. And you gotta love that about you, Jackie. So I just wanted to share that as well. And it was awesome. Just the conversation tonight was great. So
And I love Jackie's quad F in the chat. It always
the
makes for
quad.
makes for some fun.
Yeah.
Crazy going forward, by the way.
And just to share, Jeremy, as well, Becky and I, we're an open book, and we have gotten so much value out of these mind models. We've said many times that it was a blessing for us we were certified in the mind models a year before the accident.
A year to the day.
A year to the day. And honestly, I can say that these skill sets are how come we're here in front of you, and we're not divorced. We've never gone through traditional counseling. These skill sets are everything. And I can't give a bigger testimony, so thank you, Blair. Thank you to the My Models and all the research that you've done. And
thank you, Tuesday nights, to be able to explore and expand, because that's really been our journey.
Yep. So yeah, it's I just can't, I can't say it enough that the My Models are amazing. and we leaned into them, and it's been a blessing in our lives. So
Part of the reason that this, I don't know what this is called that we do, but we call it an experience. It's the Blair Dunkley experience. It's not the Blair Dunkley teaching, it's the Blair Dunkley experience. Because we use what we're talking about. Brent took a risk tonight and used, you know, used the mind model and practiced, coaching, and you can see people do what they do. Jackie interweaves concepts constantly, and Colin took a risk tonight with things. So that's the reason this is called an experience, because we don't have a better word for what we do here except have experiences together in a supportive atmosphere where it really is the no judgment zone. So there we have freedom to accept one another and our individual processes. So, Miss Jackie, do you wish to participate in the wrap up at the moment?
Hi. Okay. Well, what I realized tonight, there was something that came up when Jeremy was chatting, and it what brought to mind was compare and contrast, and like comparing ourselves to others in the group, etc., etc. And that leads me down a really fucking bad tunnel, because like I think, oh well, I should have said that, or I didn't know that, or I didn't quite express it that way that people understood. And one more time, it brings me back to individuality.
Yes.
Believe me, like anybody looking from the outside would not know that Jeremy's only been here 5 times. Because like right now, he seems like a pretty well a guru. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
the way that he's acting and expressing himself. So that was huge for me.
So Jackie, are you okay right now with what's going on? You talked about getting into quite a lot of self-judgment. Are you in a present place right now?
Oh yeah, I know, and that's what I had down here. It's like the self-judgment. It's rather than evaluating, and it's very difficult when you're in a new group, evaluating where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing is, where are you at yourself right now? Because that's exactly where you need to be. And so that was very touching. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to zip it. But I'll give it an 8 out of I was going to say 8 out of 9, but it's an 8 out of 10.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
Good
Blair,
job.
do you want to give us your wrap up?
Sure. This didn't go the way that I thought it was going to. According to our lesson plan, it sort of did a bit of a sidestep, but a very effective sidestep at the end of the day, I thought.
I agree.
So we now have even more material for next week that we didn't think we had, but we've already got it planned out because most of it we didn't cover, but we got into depth.
Yes.
And Jeremy, I thank you for causing us to go deep. And that is highly effective because it gives us the ability to view ourselves differently and requires us to engage in a different way at a different level of depth rather than just stating, well, that's what it says in the book. Don't buy that at all. So I believe in creating an experience, and this is exactly what I offer, is the ability to have an experience. Hey, Jackie, you raised your hand.
Not
You gotta
hearing you.
unmute.
it's back to that compare and contrast. And one point that I missed was how if we compare ourselves to other people, we may stop us from taking action. And Jeremy pulled right through that. He said, I don't basically, and this is not his words, but I basically got, I don't understand. I want to know. And here I go. And he started asking the questions and took that risk. That's bold, very bold.
Yes, it is.
And I would also say highly effective.
Mhm.
Well, yes. Thank you, Blair, for adding that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Well, that's my viewpoint. I thought it was highly effective.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Are we ready to, are you in a place, Blair? Did you need to say anything else at the moment, or are you
I'm good.
wrapped? Okay.
I'm wrapped.
One of the things that I appreciated about tonight was slowing the process down. You know, Blair described it as going deeper. Sometimes we get too familiar with words, and my models over time kind of give you a language of your own that other people who've been in this for a while understand. And Jeremy helped us slow down tonight and look at, okay, what is this process? And Tim and Becky showed us, how does this relate outside of business? How can we use this just in our personal lives with ourselves and, you know, with the things that are real in our own world? And, you know, Jackie, yeah, slow down to speed up. Exactly. So again, very effective tonight. I give it a 9. So Colin, would you like to give us a wrap up and then take us out?
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
My wrap up 9 for me tonight. I just wanted to call out a few people. Jackie, thank you for being a chat warrior with me. I love like having little sidebars there, so that's fun. I appreciate you for engaging that way. Um, Leslie, what you said in your wrap up, the question about that practical application in the situation that you shared. I mean, won't go down the rabbit hole now, but I relate to that, so I'd love to also dig into that in future sessions. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. Patty, I feel like I've been complimenting you every BDE recently, but I have to do it again because like I just appreciate your demonstration of like congruence and head-heart connection. That's something I'm working on right now, and so being able to watch somebody who just demonstrates that so well, it's very helpful. It's helped me in specific ways the past couple days. I'll share those in our group later, but yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah, outro. So I'll just kind of wrap us up here. If you want to get all of the historical notes as of at least the past few weeks when they started, the study guide and ongoing notes for the Blair Dunkley experience, check out blairdunkly.com/BDE-insider-notes. I'll post it again in the chat. There it is. $25 a month. You can get access to those, $300 a year. They're pretty cool. There's lots in there, so check it out. If you are watching on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. And if you'd like to join the calls live, be part of this experience, you can join us at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time every week on Tuesdays. This is where we will be. So thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure, as always.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Staties. We will see you next week.
Staties. All right. See you then.
Have fun.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.